Hello and welcome to 65 Wide, your CFL podcast, hosted by me, Spencer Stryker. We've got a great guest today, and listen, I gave him an insane intro in our interview, so I don't think much needs to be said, but he's a legend who helped bring the Grey Cup to Winnipeg in 2019 before a 4-year stint in the NFL with the Cardinals, Ravens, Dolphins, and Jets before retiring last week at Winnipeg's home opener. That is, of course, Chris Streveler. This has been an insane weekend of games. I mean, to start things off, the Ticats dominated their game against the BC Lions on Friday, 41-27, taking an early lead and never backing down. Regardless of the fact that BC couldn't capitalize on offense, Big Bobo chucked the skin pig for a total of 285 yards and 5 touchdowns on 15 completions. When 1 in 3 throws is a touchdown pass, it's pretty hard to blame that on BC's offense. The Lions DBs were getting burnt worse than a ginger in Barbados. We did get to see backup QB Chase Bryce lead a touchdown drive late in the fourth quarter, throwing for 87 yards, making 6 out of 7 completions, and that honestly was pretty great to see. It's nice to see a backup putting up numbers like that. Then our triple header Saturday. The Argonauts took down the Red Blacks 44-21, and Chad Kelly put on a show with 424 yards in the air and 4 touchdowns, none of which were with Kevin Maital despite his 178-yard game on 11 receptions. Honestly, nothing seemed to be working out for Ottawa, and they only had 13 more passing than punting yards. We gotta say it, the streak is over! After 14 regular season games in a row, Alexander the Great was conquered by the Elks in a 32-29 overtime victory. Edmonton's running back Justin Rankin was ranking up the numbers with 2 touchdowns on 179 yards. In other news with Edmonton, this week their club president said that the name change has been negatively impacting the team's ticket sales, which is crazy because I thought that maybe it was the fact that this is the first time since 2019 that they've started a season 2-0. And finally, Calgary gets taken down in double overtime by the Riders after an impressive comeback in the second half that saw the Stamps put up 17 unanswered points. Listen, the Stamps are my team. It pains me to say that we are even starting the season 0-2, but it's nice to get a taste of what Edmontonians have felt like without having to actually be in Edmonton. Alright, that's it. We're gonna get into it after just a few seconds, but first, here's an ad. Death is guaranteed. And so are these low prices. Gear Grandpa up to go out in style at Rowdy Corpse's Funeral Services. We provide full service for people who can't stop party rockin'. Our animatronic team will work around the clock to get your loved one on their feet one last time. Plus, the best tunes spun late into the night by DJ Deadmau5. Remember, it's not awake if you're not awake.
Located off of Highway 135 East, just before the Interstate Olive Garden, turn left when you see our neon sign with the missing O's. Have your service catered by Pizza 73 at a 37% discount when you apply code FREDSDEAD at checkout. Bodies who have been automized cannot be submerged in water and will begin decomposing in 7 to 12 days. Remember, if Grandpa hits you, we aren't liable. Email 65widepodcast@gmail.com for more information.
You've read the title, you know what this is about. Our guest today played college ball for the University of Minnesota and the University of South Dakota, where he threw for 6,081 yards and 54 touchdowns, earning the Missouri Valley Football Conference Offensive Player of the Year award in 2017, and he was runner-up for the Walter Payton Award. After going undrafted in the NFL, he joined the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in 2018, becoming the first QB to start in the CFL immediately following college since Anthony Calvillo in 1994, and in 2019, he brought the Grey Cup back to Winnipeg after 29 years. He went on to play in the NFL from 2020 to 2022 on the Arizona Cardinals and had stints with the Baltimore Ravens, Miami Dolphins, and my favorite AFC team, the New York Jets, before returning to Winnipeg for the 2024 season. Last week, he officially retired in style at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers home opener, throwing for 4,144 yards and rushing for another 1,740 for a combined 67 touchdowns in his CFL career. Please welcome our guest, the GOAT, Chris Streveler. How are you doing, my friend?
Woo, take a breath, brother. That's a heck of an intro right there, man. I appreciate you rolling me in like that.
Man, I'm not gonna lie. I am so glad I went to theater school after reading all of that in one giant breath.
Yeah, you killed it, man. You did a great job. I appreciate you.
Oh man, I'm so glad that I was able to do you justice because I mean, man, your career has been incredible. It's been so much fun to watch, and I'm saying that as a Calgary fan. Okay, like you knocked us out of the playoffs in the Western semifinals in 2019, went on to win the Grey Cup, and it was just an incredible run. I mean, that year was insane. You rushed for 726 yards for 12 touchdowns on the ground while throwing for an additional 1,564 yards. Looking back, do you think that any CFL team really figured out your offense style? Because you were a dual threat in a different way than I think a lot of folks are giving you credit for.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, that run was unbelievable, right? I mean, what we were able to accomplish with the adversity we overcame as a team and guys getting hurt. And, I wasn't the starter to start the season. I end up going in. Matt Nichols goes down. I break my ankle. Zach comes in. It was really just all hands on deck to get it done. And I think that's ultimately what I'm most proud of about that team is every single guy on that roster played a role throughout the year to get us there. And in terms of, my style of play, everyone's got their own style, their own little flavor of how they like to play the game. And part of my game has always been physicality, running the ball, putting my body on the line. And that's just how I played the game. Everyone's got their own little flavor. And, I coach quarterbacks out here in Arizona, and I tell kids all the time, I'm like, figure out what your superpower is as a football player and lean into that. And mine was always just a little bit of grit at quarterback and running, and I needed that to play the position. And if I got away from that, I would have never been a professional. So I don't know if teams ever figured it out. It's not really ever something I've thought about, but I always just played the game as hard as I could and did what I could to help the team win.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned that too, because, with that year specifically, every quarterback basically getting injured on the team, but every quarterback on the team having such a different approach to how you're playing the game. What do you think is like the biggest, positive to having quarterbacks that have such different styles?
Yeah, I think there's stylistic play on the field, and then there's also stylistic leadership off of the field, right? And so I think having different personalities, especially a quarterback and within a locker room, is extremely important from a locker room culture perspective. So you can relate to different guys. Like I'm going to relate to guys different than Matt Nichols relates to guys. And same thing with Zach. We're all different people. So we have our own leadership style. And in terms of what you bring on the field, I mean, we were really able to capture our strengths between Zach coming in late in the season and going into the starting role, and then me being a little banged up and still being able to play my role. And we really created kind of this two-headed monster in the playoffs of, Zach going in and running the show, and then I'm coming in, being able to supplement, get us a couple first downs. And there's a lot of stats in CFL football around how many first downs can you get, and if you can generate an explosive within a drive, how that leads to points. And so that was kind of my role throughout that Grey Cup, was like, can I come in and get us a couple first downs, get a couple up-tempo plays, help us get the drive, continue to sustain drives? That's going to lead to more points. And can we steal an explosive on a 2nd and 1? Can we put me in on a first down and throw a pass to Andrew Harris, or can I get on the outside and get 20 yards on a 2nd and 1? When you're able to do that as an offense, again, there's a lot of stats that prove that those explosive plays and a couple extra first downs, it's always going to lead to more points. And so we were able to do that in 19, and ultimately we ended up getting a championship.
Well, and I want to say this, because with bringing the Grey Cup back to Winnipeg, there was such a famous story of a man who only was wearing shorts until the Bombers won the Grey Cup again. How does it feel that you were the reason a man put pants on again?
It's an interesting wording out of you right there. I don't know if that's the way I've ever thought about it, but I do remember seeing that guy on the sideline and 6 minutes left in the game. We're beating Hamilton pretty good. We know we're going to win. I just hear the crowd start erupting in the distance. And I look over, there's this guy just putting pants on. I'm like, he finally did it. We got it done. He put his pants on. Let's go.
That's so funny. Well, and it's interesting too, because I mean, I grew up in Rider country, and there's a huge culture around the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And living in Calgary, it feels like there's a three-way split in terms of CFL fans in the city. There's the Rider fan base of the Saskatchewan Exports. There's the Elks fans, because of course there has to be some in every city. And then there's the Stamps fans, right? But in a city like Winnipeg, how how different is that football culture? Because like I feel like that's not comparable to even a lot of NFL teams.
Yeah, it's elite. And when people ask me about Winnipeg and the CFL, because I get asked these questions all the time, what do you love about Winnipeg? What makes it different? I'm like, the people, man. First of all, great people. Second of all, the way that they support that organization is second to none in the CFL. And I'd put it head to head with some NFL teams. The way that that team has sold out 15 straight home games. That's unbelievable. I don't know if that's been done in the CFL ever. Someone can probably fact check me on that, but it's unbelievable. And I think not only is it because of the success on the field, that obviously helps, right? People want to come to games and see teams having success, but the way that that organization has gotten players involved in the community, I think that's something that as the game continues to grow and teams search for new fans and different fan bases, I always tell people, if you go meet a player and you're not a fan of a team, but you have a great experience with that player, you're going to support that player and you might end up at a game. And I think if you're talking about getting younger fans involved in the CFL, getting those players out into the community where they can get around younger people and those people can connect with those players, that just builds fandom. I mean, it's as simple as that. So I think the organization's done a great job doing that. I think the fans, they continue to show up. I mean, we saw the retirement celebration for myself last week. It's just unbelievable. And every time I go to that stadium and get around those fans in that city, I just feel so energized for their passion for the Blue Bombers.
Well, and it was wild too because the lookalike contest was, I think, maybe the coolest thing that I've ever seen for a retirement party. Did you come up with that, or was that something that the Bombers came up with?
I did not come up with it. I think it was one of the social media guys that came up with that. Wade helped orchestrate that whole thing, and it's silly, it's crazy. You got grown men and women in fur coats and cowboy hats, but it's just such a cool honor to like have people come and show support like that. It's just never something I would have ever dreamed of. It's not something I really even asked for or wanted. I'm not a big like look at me type of guy. The fur coat is just taken on a life of its own since the parade. But man, what I am thankful for is just the support that the fans have given me and the way that organization once again has supported me through all the stops of my journey.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned before about what can attract new fans. You know, the positive experience that they have with a certain player might make them want that team to succeed. And I've personally started to see that from starting this podcast and starting to connect with guys that are outside of Calgary, and having first seen how generous everybody that was involved with the Calgary organization was, and then taking that step forward and reaching out to guys like you, guys like Nathan Walker, and all of these people that are on teams or have played for teams that I might not necessarily be like, oh, I'm going to cheer for that team, but now I'm going to watch those games and I'm going to be looking out for those guys, and I want to see them succeed because I can see how generous and kind and genuine those people are. And I feel like that's something that maybe you would be able to speak to about the difference between the CFL and the NFL in a way, because it does feel more in general in the CFL like it's more of a community and more of a let's all support each other kind of an atmosphere.
Yeah, well, I'll say this. There's good people in both leagues, no doubt about it. But what I will say about the CFL is the players are more accessible. I mean, in the NFL, it's probably going to be difficult for you to just shoot a player a DM and the next day we're hopping on a podcast, right?
Yeah.
That probably doesn't happen. You're not going to have players walking through the parking lot after the game out of the stadium and fans are just standing there able to access players. So from that standpoint, the players are more accessible. And again, I think leaning into that from a league perspective is amazing from a growth standpoint. And I also just want to touch on, the fan piece of people supporting people from other teams because they relate. And I actually seen a lot of that in the last couple of weeks that I've gotten involved with social media as I pursue a broadcasting career, interacting with fans from other teams, particularly SAS, because they're very active on X and social media. And the amount of back and forth that they've given me of like, man, I used to chirp you quite a bit when you were a player, wasn't really a fan, but now that I kind of see your personality and the way that you're trying to cover the league, like I love it and I'm supportive. And so I think that there's good people on both sides with the fans and the players, and they just want to support the league at the end of the day and see the league do well. And that's one thing I love about the CFL.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. I think I want to pivot just a little bit into the NFL because you played for four teams in your time in the NFL. The Cardinals, the Jets, and then the Ravens and Dolphins. out of those organizations, what did you learn the most about how to be I guess, more present and more consistent football player that maybe you hadn't learned before? Like, was there one that really stood out for you as a memory of like, oh, this was game changing?
I mean, there's so many things that happened to me during that time. You talk about making an active roster 2 consecutive seasons to then getting cut 4 times in a row. The last guy added on training camp. You go out, you win a couple football games, the team's chanting your name, you're on NFL, you get cut again. I mean, just those ups and downs, those peaks and valleys that I went through down there in 4 years. I mean, it teaches you a lot about yourself as a person and what you're made of and how you respond in adverse moments. So that's one thing. The other thing is just getting to be in the room around legends of the game and just soak up that information. And I'm so big on processes. Like when I think about leadership, when I think about being a quarterback, it's all about what is your process? How do you prepare? That's when games are win and lost. You don't just show up on game day and are like, well, hopefully I have a good day today. No, you put in the work during the week. And the guys that have the most optimized process are generally the best players. So when I see these guys, when I'm in a room with Joe Flacco, when I'm in a room with Colt McCoy, Aaron Rodgers, the list goes on and on, Teddy Bridgewater, guys that have been in the league for 10 plus years and had sustained success, I'm trying to grab bits and pieces from what they do in their process, because you don't stick around for 10 plus years in the NFL by just being good. You stick around by having a process and a system in place for how you prepare every week. So you're prepared to go out and play. The game's the fun part. The work gets put in during the week. So, that's just a couple things that I picked up in the NFL, but just, again, so many life lessons of, who you are when you go through adversity and what you're made of. It really teaches you a lot about yourself. And honestly, man, I'm thankful for all of those experiences, whether positive or negative, because it's ultimately just made me who I am today.
Well, and it's interesting you talk about the work that you put in the week ends up, the game is the fun part. I have been experiencing that lately because at 30 years old, I decided to step out of my comfort zone and get back into actually playing football. And I'm playing in a highly competitive league that is, like it's quote unquote semi-professional because they have corporate sponsorship. But like realistically, it's men's rec ball, right?
I'm gonna see you in one of those 37U clips on Instagram, just getting torn up, huh?
Oh, dude, I absolutely will. I guess my next question that kind of builds off of this though is you're still a younger guy. Like you're 31 years old, and some of the guys that you mentioned, like Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers, like they're up there in age now. And I mean, obviously Aaron Rodgers has announced that he is going to be retiring at the end of this season. But what made you decide to retire at your age, and why do you think it's a bad idea that I am coming out of retirement at my age? I guess.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, hey, you love the game, your body's doing okay with it. Go play, man. Just be smart. You don't want to show up to work with a dislocated shoulder because you were messing around in rec league, But hey, you do what you want to do. As it pertains to me, you being 31, me and my buddy Drew Wolotarski, man, we always joke that like football years are like dog years. So like you play 1 year of football, that's really like 7 years. So you make it to 8 years, it's like 56 years old. It's not a bad little run. You always say, hey, if I have a dog that lives to 10, a big dog, it's a pretty good run, right? So, when I started playing football professionally in the CFL, I looked at Matt Nichols, whose locker was right next to mine, and I'd always say, like, man, like if I could play to 30, that'd be pretty cool. And I did that, and I'm proud of that. And I think at this point in my life, I've torn my ACL 2 years in a row. I have pretty severe arthritis in my knee. I've got quite a bit of other chronic issues in my body. I've got a 1.5-year-old daughter. I have other interests and things that I've been invested in since I've started playing that I want to pursue. And I want to stay around the game. I think I've made that very clear these last couple of weeks in the way that I've been engaged with the league. I have passion. I have knowledge. I have energy for this game and for this league in particular. I want to pursue a career in broadcasting. And at this point, with the shape that my body's in, I think that there's more useful ways that I can give to the game rather than going and put my body on the line. I want to be able to play with my daughter when she gets older. I don't want to have to get a knee replacement in 2 years. And there's just a lot of those factors that kind of came into it. Look, hey, I told my wife this the other day. I said, hey, look, if it was just me and I didn't have you and I didn't have Sonny, my daughter, and we didn't have a house here and I was still living out the back of my Jeep, I'd probably still be playing football because I'll put my body on the line any day of the week, and there's nothing like being in the locker room. I teared up last week going back to Winnipeg and seeing those boys in the locker room. But at the end of the day, there's things that are bigger than me now. I have a family, I have a house, like I have other interests, and sometimes you have to do things that are difficult even though you know it's right. So that's kind of where I'm at with it, and I'm at peace with it. It was a little bit difficult seeing the boys go out on the field and knowing I'm not a part of that anymore, but I think they all know why I'm retired, and I think they all know how much I love them and support them. Even if I do find myself in a media role, I always have so much love and support for those guys, and I think everyone that's ever come across me and my journey as a professional, I think that they know that I genuinely love my teammates.
No, and you touched on broadcasting, and this is one of the reasons too why I wanted to talk to you, because you started doing league recaps, previews, and you're breaking it all down, and from a fan perspective, this is such a cool thing to see because we're seeing somebody who actually understands the game from that perspective. And you're doing it on YouTube right now with See It Like Strev, which is great. And I love that. But I really want to see you on TSN. I want to see you on DAZN when they start their Saturday broadcasts. What do you think is like, because I'm going to link everything below so that people can check it out. So whatever podcast platform you're listening on, please go check it out. Like, it is very much worth your time. I learned so much in the first week, and I mean, and I'm an idiot, and so if I'm able to learn, this is a huge thing. But what do you think it is that is going to that you learned from football as like a lesson, not game IQ, but as a lesson that you can see is going to carry on through your broadcasting career?
Yeah, I think it's just the mindset and the work ethic. I mean, being able to push through uncertainty. Just transparently speaking, I'm retired right now. I don't really have a job. I coach quarterbacks on the side, and I have a company out here that I do that with. I invest in some real estate, but there's some uncertainty in my life right now. And in football, man, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of adversity. How do you continue to work through that? How do you continue to push your best foot forward each and every day? And I think that applies to being a man, being a dad, professionally. So I try to carry that over every single day in my life. Yeah, I appreciate the plug on the YouTube channel and all that content. It's a world that's very new for me, but as I started to kind of dive into it, I'm like, there's no one really doing it. There's no real former players, specifically quarterbacks, that are getting into the schematics of the CFL. I mean, you have these guys that do it for the NFL, Chase Daniel, Kurt Banker, Baldy. Who's doing it for the CFL? There's fans that want this. And so there's kind of two pieces of it, right? Me getting in front of the camera, which was my first episode, and just, hey, can I talk for 15 to 20 minutes into the camera and be able to articulate the game and share my knowledge in a way that's high level enough where you're going to take something away, but also digestible enough for the casual fan where they can learn a little bit. So there's that piece of it. And then starting this week, what I'm really excited to do is I've kind of been teasing some of these one play breakdowns on Twitter, on my social media, and just like showing people the telestrator that I can kind of talk through a play in a minute. But what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to go back through the games this weekend and take, let's call it 5 plays and go break them all down and kind of show some of the keys and schematically what happened. Because we can all watch the game and say, oh, yeah, so-and-so dominated, but can we get into the schematics and really teach people what's going on and why things are happening? So I think that's going to be a really unique way for me to share my knowledge. And the last thing I started doing yesterday, actually, on social media is just, I'm going to do 30 straight days of football stories. I've got a ton of stories, man. And I've had a lot of really unique, interesting experiences in my career, and people want stories. And I think, as a broadcaster, as someone that's looking to use media and social media, you got to be able to tell stories. And so for me, it's a great opportunity to sharpen my sword from that aspect. But fans and people have been really excited to just, hear some of these stories. Everyone's asking about 2019, the fur coat. I'm going to get into some of my NFL experiences as well. So just kind of putting it all out there, man, whether it's my energy for the game, talking on camera, breaking plays down, telling stories. I'm just putting it all out there and letting the chips fall where they may. And I hope that people are getting something out of it, and at the very least are entertained.
Well, you know what? We're definitely getting something out of it, and we're for sure going to be entertained. I'm super excited for what is next for you, my friend. Once again, I got to say thank you so much for coming on here. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I'm going to link everything below, so be sure that you go check it out. And yeah, thank you again.
Yeah. Hey, absolutely, man. I've got some plans to potentially get out around the CFL, the different stadiums later in the season. So if some of those plans had come to fruition and I'm out your way, you're in Calgary, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm out in Calgary, man, and I end up at a game out there, let's link up and let's have a beer or something. Let's talk some ball.
Let's do it. I would love to. All right.
Cool.
Well, I'm gonna let you go. Thanks so much. Have a good one, man.